Good morning, everyone. If you can all hear me, can you just please raise your hands? Okay, good. Just going to give a minute or so to see if there's some other people also wanting to attend. So make yourselves comfortable so long. Okay, I think we can start. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session. I hope this will be worth your while. And thank you for attending on a Friday on a cool day. Again, my name is Ilse Stickling. I'm the Education Specialist for History and Geography. I am struggling a bit with my voice, so I hope it remains or it keeps on during the session. If you are struggling to hear me during the session, please make sure that your audio is on and your speaker volume is turned up. And then also during the session, you will automatically be muted when joining the session. Then should you have any questions, please type them in the question box. And then please provide us with your email address as well, so that we can later give you feedback on your questions. Then on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see that there are handouts available. You can download these slides. Vir die Afrikaanse mense, julle kan ook hierdie voordrag net aflaai. Dit is ook in Afrikaans beskikbaar aan die regterkant van jou skerm. During this session, I will try to explain some content in Afrikaans. And then remember, if you have any questions, just to type them in the question boxes and make sure to put in your email address as well. Okay, so during this session, I'm going to talk about globalization. This is a very, very broad content topic. So there are some of the content not being explained in this slideshow itself. So please also work with this content in your textbooks as well. Whichever textbook you are using, Impact Learners uses the Focus textbook. If you are not registered with Impact, then also use your own CAPS prescribed textbook at Globalization. Okay, just an introduction. Globalization and a new world order. It's a new period of history that basically followed from the Cold War era. And it is very, very different from the previous one. So dit is 'n nuwe tydperk in die geskiedenis, die nuwe wêreldorde en globalisering, en dit is nogal heelwat anders as die vorige stelsel wat ons gehad het in die koue oorlog. A new world order appeared after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1989 and the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, or Soviet power in 1989 and the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. So na die val van die Sowjetmagte in 1989 en die val van die Sowjetunie in 1991 kry ons dan 'n nuwe wêreldorde. And I think the past few weeks you have also seen people talking or heard about people talking about a new world order with the coronavirus and so forth, and talking about the world order of 2030 and all of those type of things. So this is basically the world now after the Cold War moving forward. This also means that there is no more East and West. The world became united due to globalization, and that there was still one center of power, the United States of America, influencing most of the world. Okay, so na die val van die Sowjetunie en kommunisme en so aan is die wêreld nie meer verdeel in 'n ooste en 'n weste nie. Die wêreld word nou basies gesien as verenigd deur middel van globalisering. En dan het ons een wêreldmag basies wat nog staande is, en dit is die Verenigde State van Amerika, wat 'n baie groot invloed op die res van die wêreld het. Okay, now the question is that a lot of people believe that a new world order would provide a lot of advantages throughout the world, but in reality these advantages are not equally distributed. So baie mense glo dat die nuwe wêreldorde baie voordele teweegbring, maar in realiteit is dit nie altyd so nie, want al die voordele word nie eweredig versprei nie. Okay, now what is globalization? Now there's a nice picture where you can see all the connections throughout the world. There's a lot of various definitions of globalization. What it basically entails is that there's a spread of technology throughout the world, and technology is advancing at a very, very fast pace. It also has an influence on social and cultural values throughout the world. So in other words, if America or the United States of America is basically seen as the economic power in the world, there's a lot of influence from the United States of America. Now, information technology, IT, became very essential for globalization and the interconnectiveness of people throughout the world. So daar's verskillende definisies van globalisering reg oor die wêreld. Basies behels dit 'n toename in tegnologie en dan ook 'n verandering in sosiale en kulturele waardes. Onthou ons het die groot invloed van die Verenigde State van Amerika. En dan inligtingstegnologie is ook noodsaaklik vir globalisering, want dit lei daartoe dat daar meer koneksie is tussen verskillende dele van die wêreld. And then also very fast connection throughout the world. It's not like in the olden days where you had to send a letter via the mail and it will take weeks, maybe months to reach a person across the world. Today it's literally maybe just seconds or minutes where we can actually connect to people throughout the world with technology. Okay, now important features of globalization. It entails the development of a common consumer culture. Okay, it has a very strong United States of America influence, and this is also in itself a very controversial issue. Okay, so ons het 'n algemene verbruikerskultuur wat geskep is deur globalisering met 'n baie sterk Amerikaanse invloed. Remember that most of the movies that we watch is from the United States of America. Most of the issues around the world and so forth has a strong United States connection. As the United States of America is the leading economic country in the world, it has a huge influence in other countries around the world. Now, there's a lot of people that actually find this as necessary for development, and then other people actually hate this to be dominated by a world power because this changes cultures and has negative impacts on many social groups and so forth as well. So it remains a controversial issue around the world. Now, with globalization, the world literally becomes a global village. We are so connected through technology and very, very quick, fast connection between countries. Business can take place very quickly through technology, and the whole business world is also connected through technology. So die hele wêreld het basies 'n globale dorpie geword. Ons is oral verbind aan mekaar deur middel van tegnologie en dan besighede ook dwars oor die wêreld kan baie vinnig met mekaar besigheid doen deur middel van tegnologie. Okay, then satellite TV and internet, it's a very fast spread of news. If there's a bombing in another country or there's a huge news event, it is literally seconds to minutes for the rest of the world to know that that happened. Okay, so it's a very, very fast spread of news that we can see what is going on in the rest of the world. Then also multinational corporations, that businesses can extend very quickly to other countries and can interlink with one another due to technology. So you will not find, for example, car manufacturers or big manufacturing companies just in one country anymore. They have literally spread to other countries throughout the world as well. Now, this would also lead in increased trade in the world and then also investments. And this is also controversial because now everyone is depending on the economies of other countries. And now we have the nice example of COVID-19 in the world recently, that economically there are not only one or two countries suffering, but there's a lot of countries suffering. There's a lot of investment suffering. You can see the exchange rates in countries. And this also has a huge influence as so many countries, businesses and technologies and people are connected in so many ways that it has a huge global impact. Okay, now there's an activity that you can actually participate in a bit later on in your own time. You will see that this has to do with the COVID-19 virus throughout the world. And remember that in a subject like history, they can bring this in as a case study. So just also be aware that this can somehow also find its way into the source-based question of globalization. There you can see the masks of people wearing. It's not just in one country that it's recently happened. It's almost throughout the world, in many, many countries, that it has effects on people due to travel, due to technology and so forth. The virus has spread very quickly to parts of the world. So this is one of the negative effects of globalization in the reality of globalization. Okay, so the activity there is basically to think of what are the different views people have on the global pandemic. There are a lot of people thinking this is a conspiracy theory. There's a lot of people thinking that, yes, this is due to a virus spread by an animal. People will think that there's political reasons behind this, that China actually wants to advance its power in the world. You might have a different perspective from the person next to you and so forth, right? So if you can read up on, so for example, the World Order of 2030, where they say, for example, the Illuminati is part of this, and it is to lessen the population of the world and all of those things. There's a lot of controversy with Bill Gates. If you just check Facebook, a lot of people say that he has a big influence in all of this. So people have different views and perspectives of the COVID-19 virus. Then the second one there, what is the current global impact of COVID-19 on the world economy? Obviously, you can go watch the news in the evenings with the economy section, look at the exchange rates and all of those things. And then you will see the global effect on the economy on different parts of the world. And this also due to the interconnection between so many countries and businesses being connected throughout the world. Then the third thing there that you can do is just to explain your own feelings about COVID-19 and the influence of social media on your feelings. How did you first feel when you found out about COVID-19? Many of you were scared, for example. Some of you are still scared. Some people believe that everyone in the world is going to get COVID-19. The uncertainty with your matric year, that you are unsure about examinations, how it's going to work, and some of you are very scared. Why must this happen in your grade 12 year, and so forth. But just a reminder that this is a huge historical event in your lifetime that is taking place, and most people will connect all of this due to the COVID-19 virus. Okay, then there's different views on globalization. And this was already set in years ago, where some people believed that globalization was positive, because globalization now meant the winning of capitalism in the world. So it's the end of fascism, which means also the end of communism. And this was defeated by a liberal democratic West. They believed in 1988 from perspectives that there was no new enemies to the liberal democratic West, with very, very few serious rivals. Okay. But then later on, this started to change, this point of view, and they started to see more negative. The Cold War was only replaced by an older evil, the clash between civilizations and religions. And we have also seen this in the past few years. The greatest threat to peace, fundamentalist Islam, 1996 perspective. So we see, due to globalization, also more and more terrorist acts, and then basically also brought on by extremist religious groups that do not want to conform to the liberal democratic West. You also see that there's a rise of more conservative leaders being chosen into governments in Europe and other parts of the world as well, that also seems to be more and more against the liberal democratic West as such. Then during this time, there was a lot of people also debating a jihad as a possible cause for World War III to break out. Now, I don't know, in 2001, for example, the Twin Towers and so forth, a lot of people then speculated, oh, this is now the beginning of the Third World War, and this is now going to become a religious war throughout the world. And in a sense, this has become true due to a lot of terrorist activities and increased activities throughout the world. So in effect, globalization also had a very negative effect. Okay, so new challenges for the United States of America. The United States of America is still the world's superpower, but now China is in second place. And what is now very interesting is that it is predicted that China can overtake the United States in the 2020s. And this is mentioned in the Focus textbook. So an economic threat. But if you now actually look at more recent statistics and so forth due to the coronavirus, you will see in many statistics that China has now surpassed the United States of America in some economic ways. Then there was also the issue of nuclear proliferation. In other words, we can look at the threat of nuclear weapons that more and more countries started during the Cold War to experience with nuclear weapons, and the design and the build of nuclear weapons that can be devastating throughout the world. And to actually counteract this, the United Nations introduced a nuclear non-proliferation treaty of 1968, which a lot of countries have signed to say that they will not build nuclear weapons in their countries. And South Africa was also one of these countries in 1991. Nowadays, also, nuclear warfare still remains a very, very big military threat to the United States of America. There are still countries that are building nuclear weapons. North Korea, for example, a huge example, frequently testing missiles and so forth. And then obviously India now that sent the first rocket satellite and so forth into space, that they are also now doing a lot of research and things like this. And this becomes a more increasing threat to the United States of America. So basically new threats towards capitalism throughout the world. Then if we also think about the rise of religious extremist groups and terrorism, and a very, very big event there was then the Twin Towers, with the airplanes flying into the Twin Towers on September 11th in 2001 in the United States of America. Okay, all this due to globalization. And then obviously you have people that is against the liberal democratic West, because according to them, that means the fall of values within those specific cultures or religious groups. Okay, this can just give you an indication that the GDP in 2019, and then the projected growth rate, then obviously the United States last year still in the top position, with China in the second place. And now you can see the newest statistics that China has surpassed the USA. So there you can see a huge growth in Chinese GDP. The blue indicated in the pie diagram on the right-hand side indicates China with 20%. And then the United States of America with 16%. And then in the bottom structure, you can see China with 28.4% growth, and then the United States in second place. So due to the COVID-19 and so forth, it is in reality something that China can in many ways and has surpassed the United States of America. Okay, just some issues with globalization throughout the world. On this side, that you will see that terrorism and the threat of terrorism has increased due to globalization, especially by extremist religious groups. Now, this can be from any religion, depending on their points of view within the world, how liberal, democratic, capitalist views and so forth are affecting changes in society. And then obviously with the influence of the internet and values and so forth promoted by movies, that can have a negative impact on youth in certain cultures and societies that's more conservative, that they actually do not want their youth and their children to be introduced to all of these capitalist evils as they would see. There you can see also the increase of toxic waste due to technology, that radioactive materials and so forth being into the environment that can be very, very dangerous. Then obviously due to more production and more worldwide companies and connectiveness, the global warming issue, that is also something that globalization caused, that the Earth temperatures are rising rapidly and that this should be addressed. There you can see that we have more security issues considering technology, that there is hacking possibilities and threats throughout the world into security systems, that no one in this earth is actually safe, that hackers can actually gain secure information through hacking on many, many systems and within government organizations and so forth. This was also recently part of a European debate due to the coronavirus. Is China the new global threat? Some people with their conspiracy theories and so forth, that this virus was being created for political reasons and so forth. And there on this right-hand side of the screen, addressing the global threat of antimicrobial resistance. In other words, more and more people throughout the world are also starting to show resistance towards antibiotics and many medicines, and also that viruses and so forth are changing very, very rapidly, and that more and more people are actually exposed to more and more diseases for which they do not have medication, and previous medication proved to not be helpful anymore. So globalization has caused a number of problems throughout the world. Okay, now you have north-south and south-south relationships being developed. Okay, so noord-suid en suid-suid verhoudings wat ontwikkel. The north include developed countries, the south include less developed countries. So die noorde sluit jou ontwikkelende lande in, en dan die suide jou minder ontwikkelende lande of jou ontwikkelende lande wat dit insluit. Now, a lot of the countries in the south or your less developed countries are suffering due to globalization because they do not have access to all the technology in many developed parts of the world. They fall behind in globalization. They cannot compete with economic strong countries and so forth. And they need to find ways to get out of this problem of northern countries or developed countries dominating the world on an economic front. Okay, so jy sal sien dat lande in die suide sit met baie probleme want hulle kan nie kompeteer in 'n wêreld wat geglobaliseerd is nie. Hulle kan nie dieselfde vervaardig soos ontwikkelende lande nie. Hulle het nie dieselfde tegnologie soos ontwikkelende lande nie. If you just compare countries, for example, like Japan or Korea, that has extreme technological developments already, and every day basically on the news now you can see robots developed for this and this type of new technology during the coronavirus to counteract this and so forth. And you think of the less developed countries that are still struggling just with basic internet connection, that are still struggling with old cell phones and things like that, that there's a huge gap between the north and the south that is less developed. Okay, so now south-south relationships need to develop so that they can stand with each other and see how they can improve themselves to help one another. Goed, so suid-suid lande wat nou minder ontwikkeld is, moet leer om saam te staan en hulle moet leer om oor die weg te kom en aan nuwe idees te dink om hulle self te ontwikkel in 'n wêreld waar hulle eintlik agtergelaat is. So in order to counter exploitation in north-south relationships, organizations established to promote south-south relationships. For example, an organization called the Group of 77s. Now, this is the logo there on top of the slide of the Group of 77s. Now, the name was given because the original amount of members was 77. In your textbooks, the focus textbooks, they mention the number 132 members, including South Africa. Recent numbers on the internet show that there are now 135 members that was counted by November 2019 in the group of 77s. Okay, so now you can see that history is constantly changing as well. Okay, due to new groups being new events and so forth. So a history textbook and so forth cannot stay for many years in a place as history is constantly changing and new information needs to be brought in. Okay, so this meant that the group of 77s had joint negotiation capacity in the United Nations and collective economic interest. So these countries could actually now have a bigger say in the United Nations for more support from the United Nations, and then also have collective economic interest. In other words, that they could each bring their strengths into this relationship and they could help one another to develop the South, to develop the developing countries more. One of the most important groups, and this is asked every year in question papers, is the BRICS. Okay, now BRICS is an acronym for the countries that are present within the BRICS group. That is the B for Brazil, the R for Russia, the I for India, the C for China, and the S for South Africa. Okay, now I put a star there with Russia because Russia is not really a developing country. It's already a country with a lot of power and so forth, especially during the Cold War, it proved to be a world power. So it's not on the same level as the other four countries, but nonetheless, it just shows that by the participation of Russia within this group, that there is a very growing power in the South for Russia to associate themselves with these groups. Okay, so 'n groep van 77s wat hulle self so genoem het, is gestig as 'n Suid-Suid verhouding. Die kenmerk van die groep is daarbo op die skyfie geplaas, of die logo van die groep. In julle handboeke staan daar dat daar 132 lidmate is van hierdie groep, insluitende Suid-Afrika, maar die nuutste internetgetalle wys 135 teen November 2019 wat aangesluit het by die groep. Die oorspronklike naam, die groep van 77 is omdat daar aanvanklik 77 lidmate was, en dit wys jou net hoe die groep ook gegroei het, en dat hulle dan ook gesamentlik 'n sterker sê het in die Verenigde Nasies en 'n groter verteenwoordiging het in die Verenigde Nasies, en ekskuus, dat hulle saam hulle sterkpunte kan bring en hulle ekonomiese belange kan bevorder as sulks. Sorry about my voice there. Dan die kleiner groepe het besluit om 'n organisasie te stig wat BRICS genoem is. Dit is baie belangrik, dit word elke keer gevra in 'n vraestel. So BRICS is 'n akroniem wat staan vir die lande wat daaraan deelneem. So dit is Brasilië, dis Rusland, dis Indië, dis China en Suid-Afrika as sulks. Nou daar's 'n sterretjie geplaas by Rusland, want Rusland is eintlik 'n meer dominante land. Hy pas nie eintlik in hierdie kategorie nie, maar dit is 'n baie goeie voorbeeld van die groeiende mag in die suide en dat Rusland eintlik baie geloof het in die groei van lande in die suide. Okay, now there on top you can see the flags of the nations involved in BRICS. So it first started as BRIC in 2006 because South Africa was still not in this group. When they started, governments agreed to meet on a regular basis to discuss and promote common interest within this group. Within this group, they comprised of a sizable chunk of the world population and economy. Okay, so hierdie groep het oorspronklik ontstaan as BRIC, want Suid-Afrika was nog steeds nie deel daarvan nie in 2006, en hierdie regerings het maar net besluit dat hulle op 'n gereelde basis bymekaar gaan kom en dat hulle algemene belange gaan bespreek, en gesamentlik het hierdie lande nogal 'n baie groot deel van die wêreld bevolking uitgemaak, as ook 'n groot deel van die wêreld se ekonomie. So apart is hulle nie sterk nie, maar saam is hierdie lande baie sterk. South Africa was invited to join in 2010, and that's why BRIC now became BRICS. Okay, and that a lot of people saw it as proof that South Africa joined the big league of states, as many South Africans believe that South Africa was now also on the same level as other countries. But this was actually not true. Okay, so baie Suid-Afrika is genooi in 2010 om aan te sluit by BRICS. So BRIC het nou BRICS geword. Die laaste S vir Suid-Afrika. En baie Suid-Afrikaners het gedink dit is nou die bewys dat Suid-Afrika op dieselfde vlak is as die ander lande, maar dit was eintlik nie die geval gewees nie. Okay. If you compare, the other members are huge in comparison with South Africa. They are all in the world's top 10 economies, whereas South Africa is only number 27 in the world economy. Okay, so South Africa was most probably invited because it was at that time the biggest economy in Africa and would therefore then be a big representative country of the South on the African continent. Okay, so now you have countries on most of the continents. Okay, just some more statistics. South Africa 2020. They say there that COVID-19 will have a profound part to play in the South African growth, not only suppressing industries such as tourism and travel, but also mining and personal services. And we can see that also with the statistics given by the government and so forth, that the COVID-19 had a huge negative influence on a lot of businesses, a huge part of the economy, and there are still businesses not being allowed on level 4 and level 3 and so forth of the coronavirus, and this has a huge negative effect on the South African economy as such. Right. So now the new statistics, whereas South Africa was the #1 in Africa, it was surpassed by Nigeria. But they say that the growth now is very slow in Nigeria as well, and that Nigeria also has a lot of political and so forth, social issues within the country, and obviously due to oil crises and so forth, that it is very unlikely that Nigeria will stay in a top position or grow to remain in a top position. Now in South Africa, they also say that South Africa was downgraded because South Africa holds on to a second spot after a difficult second half of 2019. South Africa went into a recession after 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. The main reason, among others, power outages from aging operations as its main power producer, Eskom. Okay. So Suid-Afrika was in die eerste plek gewees teen tye wat hulle by BRICS aangesluit het. En dit het geval na 'n tweede plek toe en Nigeria het hom verbygevat, reg. En Suid-Afrika het hoofsaaklik ook baie gevou ten opsigte van die kragprobleme in Suid-Afrika as gevolg van verouderde besluitnemings en goeders in Eskom en regstellings wat nie gemaak is nie en kort beurtkrag en allerlei sulke goeders. So Eskom was nog maar 'n groot rede gewees dat Suid-Afrika geval het in die ekonomie in Afrika. Nigeria in die eerste plek het 'n baie vinnige groei getoon, maar die afgelope tyd ook 'n baie stadiger groei as gevolg van heelwat probleme wat ervaar word in Nigeria. So daar's ook baie spekulasie rondom Nigeria of hy nog steeds in die eerste plek gaan bly. Maar ja, hulle glo nie dat Nigeria met baie persentasie gaan groei in die volgende paar jaar nie. And then you will see Egypt in a third place. Okay, then BRICS continue. Together they form a very important economic group. They make up 42% of the world's population together. They also make up 25% of the world's gross domestic product, a quarter of the land surface in the world, And it is very likely that they could also in future expand to include countries like Nigeria, now the top country in Africa, and other countries such as Turkey and South Korea as well. Okay, now there are many similarities and common interests within these BRIC countries. Brazil, Russia, and South Africa are, for example, major exporters of raw materials. And then on the opposite side, China and India need raw materials and resources. So they benefit from a relationship with each other in these BRICS. China is also the largest trading partner of South Africa and Brazil. And again, this becomes very controversial because there's a lot of people saying that China is actually taking over many countries with the economy, and many countries are actually not really realizing this. Global importance of BRICS, that non-Western countries can play an increasing role in the global economy. Okay, now responses to globalization. Reaksies tot globalisering. Economic insecurity, ekonomiese onsekerheid, nationalism, nationalisme, and localization, lokalisering. Right, in 1990, Western capitalism was seen as the only workable economic model. Then the USA suddenly experienced a severe recession in 2008, and people started to feel more insecure because the United States of America was almost economically invisible. Nothing could compare to the United States of America. It was safe and so forth. It was the leading force in the world. And now suddenly there are problems in the United States economy, and the United States of America is falling into a recession. And obviously, due to globalization and a lot of companies interlinked with one another and investments in the United States of America and so forth, this would have a very negative impact on other parts of the world as well. And during that time, if you can remember back, that there was recessions felt in other places around the world as well. And South Africa also experienced the effects of that as well. So globalization helped cause the recession. Two reasons for that was identified. The first one, national economies became increasingly dependent on each other with globalization. Right, these countries are so interconnected with each other. There are businesses that originated in one country that is now in other countries as well. And obviously, if one country is affected, it will negatively affect the other country. So it's a multiplying effect throughout the world. It's not like countries develop on them by themselves anymore. It's hugely an interconnected world. So no economy, no matter how strong, can prosper by itself under this liberal capitalist system. Right. So ekonomiese onsekerheid is hoofsaaklik veroorsaak deur globalisering, want die Verenigde State van Amerika was die voorbeeld gewees van vooruitstrewendheid en dit het goed gegaan. En dit is nie 'n land wat sommer tot 'n val sal kom of wat ook al nie. En ewe skielik gaan Amerika in 'n resessie in 2008. En as gevolg van die verhouding wat Amerika het met soveel baie ander lande en beleggings en besighede wat uitgebrei is reg oor die wêreld, is ander lande ook baie negatief geraak deur hierdie resessie. En Suid-Afrika was ook een van die lande gewees. Nou, twee redes is hoofsaaklik daarvoor geïdentifiseer. Die eerste een was dat nasionale ekonomieë baie meer afhanklik was van mekaar. Omdat besighede en lande nie meer onafhanklik is nie, hulle is absoluut afhanklik van mekaar, omdat besighede versprei het in verskillende lande, beleggings in verskillende lande en so meer, dat dit maak nie saak hoe sterk jou ekonomie is nie, dit kan nie onafhanklik funksioneer nie in 'n globaliseringswêreld waar soveel mense afhanklik is van mekaar. Then there was also the banking crisis, A lot of bankers received incentives on investments throughout the world of prosperity due to globalization and so forth. And during the recession and so forth, a lot of these bankers lost their incentives. And this also became crises throughout the world because some banks had to close their doors and bankers were negatively influenced by this, losing incentives and so forth. And then governments became increasingly aware of situations in banks exploiting people and so forth, that they were strongly supervised by the governments in the countries as well. Okay, nog reaksies tot globalisering, nationalism and localization, nationalisme en lokalisering. Instead of reducing differences between people, an opposite trend actually started to develop as what people believed would develop with the New World Order. Rather, an emphasis on differences and local interests, okay? And what is very ironic is that we also saw this with the United States of America, with Trump being the president, that it became more localized, that he was the one saying America for Americans, that he's first going to look at the American people and the welfare of the American people than the rest of the world. So being the main responsible country as a world power with so much influence on the rest of the world, this would now also have a negative impact and cause a lot of controversy throughout the world. You also see strong nationalism in countries like North Korea, being a communist country, testing their own nuclear weapons, posing a threat to the United States of America, and obviously to the capitalist world as such. We can also look at countries like Iran, we can look at countries like India, and there's a lot more countries that actually started to focus more on nationalism again and local issues within their countries to try and counteract the negative side of globalization, to say that this is enough because capitalism throughout the world and this interconnectedness has negative impacts within the countries and so forth. Localization is when has to do with a specific geographical area, focus on interest of a specific culture or an area. In Yugoslavia in 1991, there were genocide, ethnic cleansing, and other human rights violations. And this was not only in Yugoslavia, this was in other parts of the world as well. And we can still see them in many parts of the world, that you will find genocide and you will find war between different religious groups and cultural groups and so forth, also brought on mostly by a new world order. You can also take the example of the Syrian war that began in 2011. And now you can also see the immigration crisis in Europe, which also became a very controversial topic, because a lot of European countries like Germany, for example, Britain, for example, would take in immigrants or refugees from these Syria and from these other people. And this causes a new number of problems, because after the extremist bombings in European countries and the United States, most of these immigrants or refugees being Muslim in religion and so forth, this causes or caused a lot of panic in European countries being upset with their leaders, some countries becoming more conservative, choosing more conservative leaders that might oppose immigration and the acceptance of refugees, other countries more open for immigration, and then people starting to fear a Muslim takeover in their countries as such. So also a lot of controversy with globalization aspects. Okay, the religious crisis caused by globalization. geloofskrisis wat veroorsaak word deur globalisering. Okay, so globalization creates fear by religious groups that their religious beliefs and ways of life is threatened by the West's materialism and loose lifestyle. Okay, so baie keer met globalisering ontstaan daar 'n vrees by religieuse of geloofsgroepe dat hulle gelowe in gedwang is, dat hulle leefwyses bedreig word deur 'n verskriklike liberale weste waar daar nie vreeslike normes en waardes is nie of 'n baie los leefstyl is. If you think here again about American movies and so forth, they would have the saying in a lot of music productions and so forth and movies that sex sells. Movies on gays, for example, to create the notion that this is acceptable in society and so forth. But in many religions and in many cultures, these things are not acceptable. And this causes religious leaders and so forth to become more aware of the negative impact of globalization on their specific religions or groups or way of lifestyle. Where there are more conservative lifestyles, then obviously the West wants to force their liberal lifestyles onto other cultures and so forth throughout the world. And that the West actually wants people to conform to what is believed is the right thing, whereas this would be in counteraction with what others believe is the right thing. So now you have fundamentalists. Okay, now fundamentalists is actually religious or moral leaders who follow fundamental teachings of their faith. So they follow the more conservative issues and so forth of the norms and values and so forth of their faith. Most of them are peaceful. Okay. A lot of people will now, with globalization, accuse all Muslims for being bad, for example, due to extremist Islamic groups like ISIS and so forth, which is not the case. But globalization has caused a fear amongst people for different religious groups and so forth. But many fundamentalist religious groups are peaceful, and they actually want to remain peaceful with other religions and cultures and so forth. They just want to keep what is acceptable in their religions and within their cultures as such. So most of them are peaceful, they are law-abiding citizens, but then again you get extremist groups, and you don't only get it in the Islamic religion, you get it in Christianity, you get it in other religions as well, like the Jews in Israel and so forth, where they actually have extremist groups that go against governments and so forth. And they are also usually people that would now, in the time of COVID-19 and so forth, also cause a lot of issues on social media with a lot of negative things and so forth as well. Some become extremist in religion, so this can be Christians, this can be Muslims, this can be Israeli Jews, this can be a number of religions and so forth. Usually they also are very, very strong nationalistic. Okay, they don't want to adapt to a Western world being headed by the United States of America, being liberal, being dominated by media and so forth, right? They want to keep their values, they want to keep their cultural beliefs and their religious beliefs and so forth, right? And this can sometimes lead that they become too much nationalistic, and this can lead to extremist groups developing in these countries. For example, groups that are anti-gay, groups that are against abortion, against peace settlements with other groups, they don't want to negotiate and so forth. They want to be dominant within their religion and so forth, and be a threat to the liberal West. Okay. In other words, they can also be very, very conservative. Okay, now religious terror by extremist groups. Okay, terrorisme, deur extremiste groepe. Now, Muslim extremists hate the West. And again, the focus is on extremist. This does not include all Muslim people, extremist groups, especially in the United States of America. Now, they mostly blame the United States of America for problems in the Middle East. Mostly, the Middle East is an Islamic region. Okay. Muslim extremist groups have used and is still using terror and violence in many parts of the world to try and achieve their ends. Again, they are against the liberal, loose lifestyle of the West. They obviously have different religious perspectives and so forth. Now, a lot of Muslims believe in, most Muslims believe in a peaceful existence and lifestyle and so forth. But now extremists are against that. They would use bombings, they would take hostages, they would assassinate people, and there's even now in ISIS regions and so forth, crucifixions that also take place, where they would crucify Christians, they would rape women, hackings that take place, to raise basically a technological threat throughout the world. They would have public displays of executions. Sometimes they would post videos on the internet threatening the West and so forth. They would also easily admit to bombings and so forth to get that reaction out from the West. They also have propaganda campaigns, and there's a lot of them actually also trying on the internet and using technology to get more people to join them, especially vulnerable youth and so forth with problems, that they would promise them money and they would promise them a lot of things to actually come and join them. Now, the deadliest terrorist groups in the world are the following. It's Al-Qaeda. If you remember back to Osama bin Laden and that history within the United States of America with the warfare of Afghanistan and so forth. Then you have ISIS, the Taliban, Al-Shabaab, and Boko Haram. Now, Al-Shabaab and Boko Haram is mostly effective in Africa, especially in northern and central African countries. Okay, so Muslim extremiste groepe haat die Weste, veral die Verenigde State van Amerika. Dit is die liberale leefstyl en geloof en goeders wat uitgebeeld word deur die Verenigde State van Amerika teen hulle geloof en volgens hulle leefstyl en so aan. En waar meeste moslim gemeenskappe baie vredevol is en goeie mense en goeders, kry jy moslim ekstremiste. En dit is hulle wat bomme plant, dis hulle wat mense gijslaars neem, dit is mense wat wat hulle stel mense tereg, dan is daar ook kruisigings wat plaasvind, waar hulle Christene kruisig, daar's verkrachtings wat plaasvind, hulle hack in baie sisteme in, kuberkrakery, wat hulle inligting probeer steel en toegang probeer kry, en so terreur oor deur middel van tegnologie te versprei, en dan ook publieke uitbeeldings van teregstellings. Hulle het baie keer video's wat hulle oplaai op die internet om vrees in te ballen by mense. En dan het hulle ook baie propagandaveldtogte wat hulle mense probeer kry om by hulle aan te sluit. En dit sal ook dan baie keer gedoen word onder baie weerlose jong mense en goeders wat dalk probleme het in gesinne en so aan, dat hulle gemotiveer word om aan te sluit by die extremiste groepe. Okay. Another issue or reaction of globalization, a more lighter one in comparison with terrorism, but nonetheless a serious one, is the issue of environment. Okay. Now, globalization, again, very controversial because globalization has led to a higher standard of living for many people throughout the world. that there's more development in certain parts of the world, that technology available in businesses and so forth. With more business growth, there's more employment in certain sectors and so forth. But on the other hand, it also has a very, very negative impact on the environment. 'n baie negatiewe impak op die omgewing ook. Now, global warming is one of those issues. Global of aardverwarming. It became a worldwide crisis, as well as other environmental issues that you are also aware of. Right, so this gave rise to protest movements around the world. You have your big movements like the World Wildlife Fund, Greenpeace, Earth Hour, and many more, trying to save the wildlife and the environment from extinction and human destruction caused by global development and capitalism. Okay, now this is something else that you can think about. Is 5G technology dangerous? This is another aspect of globalization. It's the fast development of Wi-Fi connection. It's the fast development of technology and so forth. And the recent debate is also on 5G. Now, a lot of medical personnel and IT personnel is against 5G because it has a very high frequency wave that causes radiation, and obviously this has a very negative impact on people's health, on your organs and so forth. And in some countries, it was also proven that birds, for example, can fall out of the sky due to 5G. Obviously, companies in technology and so forth would try to promote 5G as this will bring in a lot of money. And again, this has to do a lot with the materialistic world caused by globalization. And again, this is against environmentalists who actually are caring about the environment, and also people who are very worried about people as such, right? Money versus the safety of people. So Brussels was one of the countries that said no to 5G. And I quote there, the people of Brussels are not guinea pigs whose health I can sell at a profit. Then the 5G appeal, scientists and doctors call for a moratorium on the rollout of 5G. 5G will substantially increase exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic fields that has been proven to be harmful for humans and the environment. Now, a lot of people also working in technology will tell you that it has very high frequency waves other than other forms of Wi-Fi and so forth. And due to it being faster now, 5G, it can help a lot with development of the technological world and, sorry, the development of globalization. But is it worth the expense? Is it worth the consequences on people's health as well as on the environment as such? So this is something that you can read up on. Again, this will remain a controversial issue that people cannot agree upon, because some people will be for 5G and others will be strictly against 5G due to the consequences. You can read up on this and then you can make up your own mind and so forth on whether you think 5G is a good thing or not a good thing as such. That's the nice thing about history, is that we can debate about a lot of things. Okay, this last slide is basically just to show you the impact of globalization. There's an integration of economics throughout the world. It leads to equality in some places and inequality in other places. Remember the North-South relationships. Communication now is very, very fast and rapid due to technology. Recognition of countries throughout the world has now increased due to technology. Trade versus aid. Obviously, there will also be, again, the thing of some countries are very wealthy and other countries are in desperate need of help. Outsourcing, that companies and so forth can now outsource to other countries. Resources can be outsourced in a very, very fast way. Also brands that quickly spread throughout the world. This also leads to a lot of materialism throughout the world that causes a gap between developed countries and developing countries that cannot be able to afford these type of brands or technologies. Exploitation of people, as some companies and so forth expand, there will always be exploitation of some people, cheap labor and so forth. Growth of countries, and then in other countries, extreme poverty caused by globalization. Then on the left-hand side, you can see at the bottom there, the environment is under severe threat due to global warming, and money actually and materialism becomes more important than other aspects. And we have people who is very concerned in more recent years about the environment, because we obviously need the earth for survival. Then you have monopoly power, that where companies are growing and the economy is growing, that the economic power and so forth will also be in the hands of a minority, usually where capitalism is present. The development of capitalism, culture is an area of debate, as we talked about, because some cultures are experiencing a great threat by globalization, where this has also now led to a more westernized culture, where everyone needs to basically adapt to the West and to more liberal views, that this adaptation needs to take place in order to adapt to a new world order. Free trade, is there really such a thing such as free trade? Then technology and the internet, technology rapidly advancing throughout the world, that can also be very, very beneficial to companies and to people around the world, but then can also be very dangerous to some people around the world. So globalization also led to a shrinking world, that people can connect very fast with one another, businesses can connect very fast and so forth. Very negative about globalization is the increase in terrorism throughout the world, due to extremist groups that are against the liberal West and the ruling basically of the world, by the example of the United States of America. And then right on the top there on the left-hand side, accountability. Who is going to take accountability in a world full of globalization, right? These responsibilities that need to be taken, and all of these things are so debatable in a world of globalization. Hi, guys, so again, a bit over time. As you know, I'm very passionate about history and can talk for ages about history, but I will need to end off now, right? So there's a lot of globalization things still in your textbook that you need to go through. These were just some basic concepts being explained. If you have any questions, please put them in the question box with your email addresses so that I can get back to you a bit later. Remember to download the handouts on the right-hand side. Vir die Afrikaanse mense, onthou om die Afrikaans af te laai, dat julle ook die inligting in Afrikaans beskikbaar het. Right. Then if there are any other people not registered with Impact and you are interested, you are welcome to contact us at info@impact.co.za. Okay, grade 12s, that was it for now. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Good luck with your studies and good luck with the rest of this lockdown and so forth. For those going back to school next week, good luck with that. And wishing you all the best. And with Impact learners, we will still see you. And yes, enjoy the weekend. Bye, guys.